White, the 2025 edition. I think everybody is not looking forward to this movie. It's been kind of the laughing stock of the past couple years on the internet. Regardless, this is the 2025 live action remake of the 1937 film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This one stars Rachel Zegler as Snow White and Gal Gadot as the evil queen. A princess named Snow White joins forces with seven dwarfs to liberate her kingdom from her cruel stepmother, the evil queen. A lot can be said about the live action Snow White. As I've said, it's been the brunt of the jokes on social media for the past couple of years now. Everybody knows the deal with these live action remakes. Me personally, I find enjoyment in most of them. I've already said my spiel about the live action remakes and plenty of the other reviews I've done about the live action remakes. Yes, they're money laundering schemes. Yes, they're Ponzi schemes. But hey, you know what? I still enjoy most of them because most of them make enough changes where it feels like its own thing. This one I wasn't necessarily looking forward to though, and it has nothing to do with what Rachel Zegler has said about the movie or her recent comments about West Side Story. I don't really like her as an actress. She acts like she's just got this entitlement bout to her, as if she's been here for 20 years, but she's really only had a cup of coffee. Sounds like somebody on my favorite baseball team that I know of who acts like he's been here for 20 years. He's only really had a full season. Just saying. But to my surprise, I really did like Rachel Zegler as Snow White. I thought she really captured the essence of the character. This is by far the best I've seen Rachel Zegler on screen. She has a lot of charisma. She has a lot of personality here that I felt was absent from her previous roles. And she really carries the songs forward. Because the songs for me, I'll talk about the songs in a minute. But when I think of Snow White now, at least the live action Snow White, I'm going to think of Rachel Zegler. I'm not going to think of anybody else. The production design for this movie is also really good. It really captures the feel of this fairy tale world, a storybook that you could just open up. They really did a good job with the costume design, the makeup, the hairstyling. I know that the brunt of the joke has been that Snow White looks like Lord Farquaad from Shrek, and yeah, I can still see that. But at the same time, when you have stuff that from the animation, costume design, sets, like things that you envision from the animation that you aren't necessarily sure how it's going to carry over into the live action, then you see it in live action, it's actually done really well. That's props to them. For instance, the iconic Snow White dress from the original animation, Rachel Zegler wears it. Could not have been more realized than it was in this movie. It literally looks like it leaped from the animation to live action seamlessly. Is how much attention to detail they actually paid to the original source material from 1937. And I really did enjoy many of the changes that this movie made in the middle of the movie. As I said, I've always thought that these live action remakes, in order to stand apart from their counterparts, their animated counterparts, they really have to either add stuff, change some stuff around to make it feel like they're their own thing. While they're not necessarily better, it's not necessarily a bad thing because then it proves to people that it's not a shot for shot remake, unless if it's The Lion King, which didn't really change all that much to me. Snow White, yes, captures iconic moments from the 1937 movie, does a lot of the same stuff that movie does story wise, but what it adds, particularly in the middle of this movie, the second act, I thought was actually really, really well done. And for a story that I don't think is all that much engaging, that's not really this movie's fault. That's the fairy tale's fault, the 1937 movie's fault. The pacing for this movie, they knew how to pace it. I looked at my watch at one point in the middle of the movie. I said, "We're only about a half hour in, aren't we?" And we were an hour and 5 minutes in. I was like, "Oh man, they're moving this thing along. They're chugging it along." So there's at least that. But when it comes to Snow White, I don't find it all that engaging for a myriad of reasons. One, the songs I don't think are as good as any of the songs from the Disney Renaissance era. And when you're adapting something like Snow White into live action, there's obviously going to be some new songs that they add in, and even the new songs didn't really do it for me. There were a couple where I was like, okay, that's catchy. Waiting on a Wish, I think, is a little catchy. Whistle While You Work, I liked that one a lot, and Hey Ho, when the dwarves are introduced, that one was good, but the rest of the songs, I was just like, uh, these aren't doing it for me. These aren't as catchy, and even those ones that I just mentioned that are catchy, I'm not gonna listen to them over like the Aladdin soundtrack or something, where Aladdin doesn't have a single skippable song. Aladdin's songs are just so iconic. You can't skip over Aladdin songs. So if I'm listening to the soundtrack for the live action Snow White, I'm gonna be like, oh, this song's on. All right, skip. Oh, now we're on this one. Skip. That's just my opinion on the songs. I don't know if anybody else has felt the way. I think they're performed fairly well by most of the actors. And when I say most, I mean most. So it's going to be interesting to see what the reaction to the songs for this movie are. But for me, I don't think they're as iconic as some of the later Disney Renaissance era songs that have been adapted for their live action counterparts. Be My Guest from Beauty and the Beast, all the Aladdin songs, Just Can't Wait to Be King, and Be Prepared. All of those iconic songs, Under the Sea. Yeah, nothing as good as those in this movie. As stated, I appreciate the changes that this movie makes to the source material, and there's something I really like about the last third of this movie where it kind of puts events after something that happens in the animation. It kind of shifts things around. That's fine. But the entire third act felt very anticlimactic, and I know what they're going for. They're trying to adapt it to modern audiences, to modern sensibilities. I'm not trying to get political, I'm not trying to state an agenda here, but I think there are different ways that they could have gone about it that I think could have brought the writing out a little bit more, could have made the writing shine. It felt like it was just building up to something big and grand, and then it just felt so small in scale and so anticlimactic as to what they actually did that it didn't have that payoff for me. All right, let's address the two biggest elephants in the room. First, let's do the dwarves. The dwarves I really liked when they were on screen. Dopey, Grumpy, Doc were my personal favorites, and Snow White has this really interesting little dynamic with Dopey that I really liked. But the design on them, man, like, I don't know. Why couldn't you just get actors with dwarfism? I get that they're supposed to be mystical, magical creatures that inhabits this forest-like storybook fairy tale land. So it's their whole argument is, well, they're not really supposed to be real people. I understand that, but you know what? When you have the dwarves on screen and then you have a supporting no-name actor and character who has dwarfism as a supporting character in the rest of the movie, it kind of looks like a slap in the face, an insult to actors who could have played the seven dwarfs. It's so strange. I was like, okay, so the seven dwarfs are all CGI, and the CGI is terrible on them, by the way. They did not fix it up. They did not listen to us on the CGI. But you have a real, actual actor who has dwarfism. Why couldn't you get seven actors to play the seven dwarfs? I don't get it. All right, and the next biggest elephant in the room, Gal Gadot. Yeah, she sucks in this movie. She sucks in everything she's in. She proves she can't act. She is the most emotionless actress I have ever seen. This is worse than Denise Richards' World Is Not Enough levels, man. This is like a stone wall has more personality than Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot says her lines as if she's reading off of a teleprompter. She puts no emotion behind anything. Her face has the blankest, coldest stare you will ever see. It's honestly, her performance in this movie is literally hilarious. Every time she started talking, I started laughing. That's how bad it was. If it's intentionally campy, I don't really know. She failed at being intentionally campy. She just succeeded at being hilariously bad. And don't even get me started on when she sings. Oh my god, that was worse than nails on a chalkboard. Holy shit. And you know what? This is gonna sound like a nitpick. Another thing too, she can't sing, she can't act, nor can she dance. Because there's a sequence in this movie where she is given a dance number. There's other dancers in the scenes with her. They're 4 to 5 steps, 4 to 5 choreography moves ahead of her. She's 5 steps behind everybody. She's doing the moves that they did 3 seconds ago. I couldn't help but just be like, wait, what? So she doesn't know the choreography either? That's crazy, man. That just shows how bad Gal Gadot is. When it comes to Snow White, I really don't know. I guess my whole issue with this movie is that I just wasn't engaged in anything until the whole, classic iconic, she turns into the old witch, poisons the apple. Snow White gets poisoned with the apple. Until all of that happened, Snow White, both the live action and the animation, aren't really all that engaging. I think that that's why I never really thought of Snow White as like one of my favorite Disney movies, because Snow White to me is literally a story that could be told in 20 minutes as opposed to 83, and in the case of this movie 109. At some point I feel like I'm just tuning out. Even if the movie is going along at a decent pace, it feels a lot shorter than it actually is. It doesn't feel like it's progressing as much as all the other fairy tales that Disney does. Like Beauty and the Beast obviously doesn't have a lot of action, but there's a lot of moving plot threads that are sprinkled throughout that movie. I just don't feel the same with Snow White. Maybe that's why I feel very mixed on the live action. I think what really worked for this movie. If you go into this movie expecting an absolute train wreck, I think you're going to be very disappointed. But if you're going in also expecting it to not be that great, I think that that is a fair expectation to have. I liked a lot. There were quite a few things that dragged it down, like the dwarfs and especially Gal Gadot. Snow White's is enjoyable with a half bucket of popcorn. So if you guys have seen Snow White, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Actually, you haven't seen it because it comes out Friday. So when you do see it, let me know what you think. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.